And welcome to this week's Successgineering Your Life Blab with my very special guest, Buhle Dlamini. And what this Blab show is about helping you discover, if you will, life hacks or ways that you can more effectively success-engineer your life. And what Buhle's work is all about is how do we discover our own inner greatness, and his journey is very cool. He's originally from South Africa, and he's had the chance to cross paths with some amazing people like Nelson Mandela and Tutu and such, and his path has brought him from there to rural Nova Scotia. So it's very cool in that way. So welcome, Buhle, to the Successgineering Your Life Blab show.
Thank you, Ravi. It's great to be talking to you. And as always, it's great just to be connecting around these exciting ideas that we deal with in our work.
Yeah. And would you like to introduce a little bit more about yourself and your background? Anything you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to congratulate you on saying my name as well, because I am from South Africa, and I'm a Zulu by culture and by language, and so that's the language that I speak. And one of the things that often is a big challenge is for people to say my name, and so Buhle Dlamini. And so I think Ravi, you did a great job there, and you describe it quite well in terms of what I do, and there's huge focus on unleashing greatness and helping people to unleash their greatness. And so it is something that I've been very, very passionate about. And I started my business in South Africa back in 2003. And really, my initial entry into this work came in from the angle of helping young people to activate their potential. It was really something that has always been a passion of mine. But the more I delved into that, and the more I did this work in leadership development and working with young people, more corporates started saying, we also need the same thing. We need what you're talking about. Our people need to grow. Our people need to sort of like reach the potential that they have. And so I started doing this more widely into different organizations and into different spaces. And because I'm married to a Canadian, although we lived in South Africa for many years, we decided to come and live in Canada for a time. And so that's why I'm here in Nova Scotia. But it's nice and sunny today. No snow in sight. It just feels like I'm in Joburg today.
Yeah, as we were saying, hopefully this is, tonight is winter's last blast, and then we shall have summer. But the other thing too, we were chatting about just before we came online, was that you talk about greatness, but for a lot of people think, oh, well, greatness, I'm not great. I'm just plain old me. Greatness is for those few, right? And I think it's what we need is a redefinition of the term greatness.
Absolutely, Ravi. I think the biggest challenge is that for many of us, when we think about greatness, automatically we start thinking about great names. And I think the challenge there is with the term great. And so we sort of like think, oh, he must be talking about Nelson Mandela. He must be talking about Martin Luther King Jr. He must be talking about Mother Teresa. There's no way he can be talking about me. And so there needs to be a redefinition of greatness. It is my belief that all of us can live a great life, that all of us can have great businesses, and that we can have great careers. And so greatness for me, it is a way of being, and not just merely a list of achievements or what you attain. So it's a way of being. And think about it this way. When you encounter greatness in a person, whether you are going shopping or you go into a restaurant to have a nice meal, when you sort of like encounter greatness, you know it. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. You know that this is a great experience. This was a great artist. This was a great server. This was a great cook. And so greatness is attainable for all of us. And so it is about moving away from this idea that this is reserved for the few, that is reserved for the great, for the famous. And so that's the starting point. It's about actually saying, when I come into organizations, for example, Ravi, to talk to a group, maybe at a retail sort of like a business, and I'm talking to a group of people who are dealing with customers every day, people who have been doing their jobs for 5, 10, 15 years. They're tired of doing what they're doing. They know they have to do it because they have to feed their families, they have to take care of the bills, and they have to do all of that stuff. And then this young guy comes and works lyrically up there about greatness. And what I'm trying to do when I talk to people is actually to penetrate the individual every single individual in that audience, to say, I'm not just talking about the great people out there. I'm not even just talking about myself. I'm actually talking about you. And I'm saying to you, you have greatness inside of you. And part of the reason that you are here is to actually to unleash that greatness. And so that when you have gone through your life, you can say, I lived a great life. I did what I could with what I had, and I was able to achieve greatness. And so that's, for me, that's what greatness is. It's a way of being, as opposed to just what the world tells you is great.
So let me bounce something off you. When I work with individuals, whether it's with my purpose coaching or discovery program, all my work is around purpose, right? But when we get with individuals, there's 3 things that I work to help them connect with internally. One is purpose, the why you are, okay? And that's not what you're going to do. It's not about it. It's the why. Second is their sense of self, who they are, your identity. But the third, and I think this ties to your greatness concept, is your gift. I believe every one of us comes into this world with some sort of a gift, some unique ability, some unique talent, some awareness, some knowledge to help ourselves grow and to share with others. Does that make sense? Does that fit in with what you're talking about, the greatness?
Absolutely fits in. It absolutely fits in, because when you're talking about that gift, and you're actually talking about the way that I describe it and the way that I look at that, is that in order for you to unleash your greatness, you've got to, there's a phrase that I use, and I use it all the time. You've got to be who you be. Which really, man, remember that, right? So you're gonna, and really, you know, this is not my concept. It's something that you know, African Americans say, and I loved the concept the moment I heard it from African Americans. You know, they don't say be all you can be or be what you can be. They be who you be, man. You know, and they put that twist on it. And for me, that really captured something, because it captured that for everybody to unleash their greatness and for everybody to tap into what is possible for them, they need to embrace who they are and who they can be. And so that really ties into the fact that there is something that is unique about you. But often we just spend too much time comparing ourselves to other people. And so we fail to see that greatness that, exactly. You know, we fail to see that I have a special gift, as you put it, or a special talent that is unique to me. And I often tell a story about how that in my own life sort of like became something that I understood. I tell a story about how when I was in high school and I won an award for a science project that we did. And I was supposed to receive an award at school, and I did not want to go on that stage because of my shoes. And my shoes were torn, and I did not want the ridicule of the other kids. And I remember going home and talking to my grandmother and saying, I don't want to be on that stage. And she spoke to my grandfather, and my grandfather organized, you know, for his own shoes for me to wear. And I tried them on, and they were too big. And I started to feel sorry for myself. And I remember my grandmother put some newspapers in the front, and she was like, try them on. She's like, how do they feel? And I'm like, you know, with tears in my eyes, I'm like, oh, okay, go. And I was feeling sorry for myself. And I think on a day basis, I believe that most individuals find themselves in this space of feeling sorry for ourselves because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in, because of the things that we're dealing with or that we're going through. But what my grandmother said really resonated with me. She said, stop feeling sorry for yourself. She said, remember that it's you who's going to be on that stage tomorrow and not all of those people you're comparing yourself to. And I often say that, you know, if she had a way of saying it, she would have said, be who you be, man. And it is about tapping into that I've got to embrace that I've got something unique. And the time that I spend in discovering that unique thing, that unique talent, that unique gift, is worth it, because if I grow, if I hone it, if I develop it, then I can attain my greatness. I can be the best that I can be in what I'm doing right now. And that's where it starts. And I think in talking about success engineering your life, more of us need to be saying on a daily basis, am I bringing out the talent? Am I bringing out the best of who I am? And have I developed it to where it can actually be? And because that's the start of the journey.
So why do you think it is that so many people hide from themselves or find ways to minimize themselves? You know, I go back to that Marianne Williamson quote that's sometimes attributed to Mandela, but he was reading her thing, that our greatest fear is not our powerlessness, it's that we're powerful beyond measure. Why do you think people are so terrified of owning their power, and how do you think they can step forward to start to claim it, to overcome it?
So the first question, why? I think for many of us, to be a victim is much easier than to be a person that goes out and does what it takes to be a victor. And so naturally, we choose the path of least resistance. You know, that's nature. And so even in our human nature, we naturally go that way. And so that's the quick reason is that it takes a whole lot more effort to embrace the greatness that is inside of you. It takes a whole lot more effort to be who you can be. And then the second,
there's something that you said, though, that's really powerful. You said to be a victim is much easier than to be a victor.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a huge statement.
Yeah, and you can see it. If take social media, for example. Social media is fueled by the sense of victim mentality, where it's this whole thing of, you know, if I can portray myself as a victim of something, I'll get more sympathy, I'll get more people rallying behind me, than if I step up and sort of like challenge the things that I see that I don't want to happen. And so that's where it starts. It starts with getting rid of that victim mentality. It's like my grandmother saying, stop feeling sorry for yourself. You know, it sounds insensitive, you know, but my grandmother's the most loving and most caring person. But because she did that for me, I am forever grateful to her, because she pushed me to not settle, you know, for less than what's possible for myself. Because I could have easily blamed my circumstances. I could have easily blamed my background. I could have easily blamed the poverty and all of the things that were surrounding me. But she said, look, you've got something. You are receiving an award because you did something. And don't lose sight of that. And I think that's the first step. The first step is then not to lose sight that you actually have something that you can contribute. People are working in jobs that they've been working in for their whole lives, but they stopped showing up 3 months after they started working. So for the first 3 months, while they were on probation,
Yeah, well,
they
yeah.
were really showing up. You know, they were stepping up, they were doing what they can, and they wanted to stay. But the moment that probation thing was signed and now you can stay, they just sort of like checked out. And that's what happens to us, is that we check out on our own lives. We check out on our own careers. We check out on our own businesses because, hey, I can just coast along. And what I'm about challenging is that coasting along. And so one of the things that I talk about is that in terms of unleashing your greatness, you also need to pursue excellence. And that is something that you know, we hear a lot on the sports field,
Yeah.
but not on a day-to-day life. You know what I mean? It's expected that if you're in sport, you know, you've got to up your game. We sit in our couches and we shout, we shout at the teams that are in the field, and we say, "Come on, boys, what are you doing? Are you sleeping out there?" But we're doing exactly the same things in our lives. We don't pursue excellence. You know, we sort of like say, "Hey, I will just get by with good enough." And one of the things that I really believe in is in unleashing your greatness, you've got to repeat to yourself that good enough is not good enough. And you've got to continuously check the work that you are delivering, check the output and that you're putting out there, and ask yourself, you know, is this the standard that I want to set for myself out there? Forget about what anybody else says. It's about actually saying, is this what I want to settle for?
Well, what's the legacy you want?
Exactly. You know, and what I really like, I mean, I love reading, and reading is, as you know, Ravi, is quite important in terms of growing and unleashing your potential and all of that. But there's been so much written on greatness, actually. And if you take the time to study great people and study people who've had great careers, you will see a recurring theme. So here are some of the things that you see in them. Great people are very, very clear about who they are. So that's where the be who you be thing comes in. They have a very clear sense of self, a clear sense of identity, which ties into Successgineering. They have a very clear sense of what is it that they can be best at. So the distinction, that's the first thing. And then the second thing that you often see in great people is that they have a very clear set of values that they live by. So in terms of principles that they hold themselves against. It's not something that someone else tells them.
Yeah.
It's something that they hold themselves. And then great people often have, as a third thing, they have high standards that also they set for themselves. Principles and standards are slightly different.
Oh, absolutely.
Principles and values speak about what you believe and what you won't compromise. Whereas standards, it's sort of like the level to which you will settle for. Yeah. And then the fourth thing that great people often have is that they have a winning attitude, which you see again and again. It's an attitude that overcomes adversity. It's an attitude that says, I will not be controlled by my emotions, but by my own set of winning attitudes that I've set before me, before I even embark on this journey. And then lastly, great people, they often are the creators of their future. And so they are prone to be driven by action. So instead of waiting for things to happen, they make things happen. And that sets them apart. And so when I looked at these, for me, then it became a thing of, okay, Buhle, here you are. You've journeyed. And when I look at my own history and my own life, I have applied some of these things in my own life. And sometimes on a day-to-day basis, sometimes I fail miserably on some of those things. Sometimes...
but you don't beat yourself up for it.
Pardon?
But you don't beat yourself up for it. You just get moving.
I don't beat myself up for it, and I don't also sort of like remain in that position. It's about recognizing. And so when you know what you what you need to know, it helps you to actually overcome those things. So what will happen, for example, and I think this is one area where many of us struggle, is an area of attitude. We know what kind of an attitude we should have in order to attain our greatness. We know that we should find a solution as opposed to just finding the problems and so on. But often, because we're human and we have emotions, we get overcome by circumstances. We get overcome by these things, and we actually have to. I know this. I have to do this for myself on a regular basis, where I have to say, okay, Buhle, I know this is the situation, this is the circumstance, but what is the attitude that you're going to choose now through this that will determine that you become the great person that you know you can be?
Because it's your choice.
It is. It always is my choice. And yeah.
So let me ask you something, because we're coming, we need to start wrapping up soon. I know a lot of the people who I work with and who follow the Successgineering, your life work, you know, the challenge for them is that they have crazy busy lives, right? So it's like there's not enough time to do everything you want, or even just to do nothing, right? Because they're juggling the kids, they're juggling finances, work, love life, or finding a love life, and you know, all of that. And how do you, in all of that, and then you come and talk about greatness, and they're going, yeah, right, like when? So what could be some baby steps that you think people could take to start to make time for themselves and to start to discover that greatness that they are?
I think one of the important things to do is to take some time out and figure out some of the things that I've spoken about. And so this is what I would suggest. And I will use my example, Ravi, like what I did to even launch my business. I actually took some time, and I went for a weekend of solitude, and I spent some time actually asking myself some hard questions about where is it that I want to go with my life. What are some of the things that I want to have? What do I want to achieve? What kind of a life I want to live? And the more I answered these, the more it became clearer to me that I can't do those things remaining where I was at that time. And so then I started to clear out and say, okay, what is it that I need to do? And it was a scary thing because I've never done business. At that time, I had worked in sort of like in an NGO environment, a non-governmental environment, non-profit environment, and so I had to ask these questions. So even if you can't take a whole weekend away, this is what you can do. You can take some time where you say, I'm just going to set some 2 hours apart, where I'm just going to ask, where am I headed? Am I having a great life? Do I want a great life, or am I just happy to be busy and crazy and stressed out and frustrated all the time? Because it needs to start there. You need to actually come to a point where you say, am I happy with the course that I'm on, or do I want to stop? Do I want to pull the brakes on the train and make it screech so that I can jump off and get on with the life I was meant to live? And so taking that time is very, very important. And then starting to ask yourself, what does success and greatness look like for me? And then going on the journey of saying, okay, so what am I going to do differently? And if I were to take maybe 3 of the things that I mentioned, I would say define who you are. So be who you be. Define who you are. What's your distinction? What makes you stand out? And then I would say define your own values. what you won't compromise on. Because many people are actually frustrated with their lives right now because they're living and they're working in environments that are opposed to what they live and their
Absolutely.
values. And it brings stress and frustration, and it sometimes destroys their own families and their own lives.
Yes.
And then I would say then the third one is to say, okay, what are the attitudes that I'm going to choose for myself going forward? And yeah, you know, there's so much stuff out there that you can read around attitude, around values, and around all of these things. But the challenge is just to go through the process yourself.
And you know what? The other thing I hear from a lot of the people I work with and who are you know, connected through the Successgineering community is that yes, it's crazy busy, but then they wind up there's a pockets on the weekend or whatever, and they're just they're exhausted, and so they just binge watch Netflix, right? And so it's a matter of, I like what you said, if you take 2 hours to do that, let's say can take 2 hours every second weekend, right?
Yes.
Guess what?
Yeah.
At the end of a year, because you don't have to do this instantly, at the end of a year, you've invested 50 hours, 52 hours, which is, you know, like full-time work of a week and a half.
Exactly.
You know, on yourself. And it's those bite-sized things, I think, because for a lot of people, you say take a weekend off and they'll just go but you know, if you could take 2 hours every other weekend, block it off, it adds up.
It really does. It really does. And other things that you can do on an ongoing basis, apart from the sort of like the block of time, is your daily dose of inspiration. And I cannot so different people have got different belief systems and all of that, and so for some people, they can find inspiration through their own faith and pursuing that. And some people, it's just as simple as making sure that on a daily basis, you read something that's inspirational, that talks to you. And on the internet is great for that today.
Oh, huge resource.
You actually don't have to. And then I would say, challenge yourself to find a role model, someone that you look up to, and someone that you can actually connect to. And I get shocked every single week how many people write to me, and I'm sure this happens to you too, Ravi. How many people write to me and they say, you have impacted my life, and I'm like, I did. You know, because although we know that that's what we are doing, we don't often get the feedback. And when people write to me and ask me a question, I make it a point. And I think you'll find that with every great teacher out there, that if you reached out to them and you said, I just need to ask you something, I need to, they will almost always respond, because that's what teachers do. And that's what, and people get surprised that, that they got a response. And I'm saying, no, but that's why I'm here. And I think that's something that we can all do. We can say, who am I looking up to? And can I just take the time to actually ask them a question or ask them, how do I navigate this? And you'll find that more often than not, those people will be ready and willing to help you along this journey.
Very much so. Good. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing, Buhle. Thank you so much for joining me on this.
Thank you, Ravi. It's always great to connect with you. And thanks for inviting me on the Blab show.
Well, truly appreciate it. And folks, thank you for joining us. We will be back next Friday, same time, with the Successgineering Your Life Blab show. And just a reminder, if you go to actually some of the things we were talking about, if you go to on Facebook, you can go facebook.com/successgineering. You'll get a whole bunch of information regularly on that. And also there's a free introduction to our full Successgeneering Your Life program. If you'd go to successgeneeringyourlife.com, or you can access it from the Facebook page, you get you can sign up for a free 3-part video course to help you start to get a sense of what it is that you want, start to discover what some of the mistakes most people make envisioning, and then some other tips and tools from our full program. So thank you for joining us. Have an amazing weekend, folks, and we will be seeing you next week.